Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? Edgeman Senajo up coming to you guys here today with another deck tech. So today we're going to be taking a look at another standard deck, and it is Midrange Junk. So for you guys that are unfamiliar with the color alignment Junk, it is green, white, and black. And for you guys that are unfamiliar with Midrange, it's a combination of both control, aggro, and also some ramping elements to accelerate us along. So we're going to break this down. If you guys have any suggestions for decks that you would like to see, please leave that down in the comments below. And remember to check out the playlist in the description that has all of the deck techs that I've covered previously and decks that I will be covering in the future as well. So the first thing that we're going to be taking a look at here is the land base. So we're running 24 lands, and the first one is Temple Garden. So Temple Garden is our shock land for green and white. So we have a play set of those. From there we have Overgrown Tomb, so green and black. Sunpetal Grove for green and white. We have a play set. Woodland Cemetary as well is going to be a play set. And then we have our utility lane, so we have Vault of the Archangel. So we're running 2 of these, and it's a really nice card because for 4 mana, 2 generic, 1 white and 1 black, tap, creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink until the end of the turn. So whenever it gets to mid to late game, it becomes a good utility land because you can just have that Lifelink, have that Death Touch, and put pressure on your opponent. So we're running 2 of those. From there we have our basics, so 2 forests, 2 plains, and 2 swamps. So these are good whenever it comes to the Borderland Ranger. We can use his ability whenever he enters the battlefield to search up basics, and we can find the lands that we need that are appropriate for what we need to play in the following couple of turns. Alright, so from there we have our creatures. So first off, Centaur Healer, 3/3 for 3 mana, and whenever he enters the battlefield you gain 3 life. Good against aggro, good against burn type decks like Rakdos Burn, Red Deck wins. Zombies as well. Zombies gets there and it tries to be really quick. Anything that's really fast paced, Centaur Healer likes to counteract it and just kind of balance you out on any life that you may have lost or may lose in the next turn or two. So Centaur Healer is really good for that. Really good early game, and it's a balanced creature. It's a 3/3 for 3, so it's not like it's a 1/1 for 3 that just gains you life. There's at least some value out of having a solid creature for that 3 mana. From there, Borderland Ranger that we talked about, so I'll get an English one for you guys that can't read Japanese. So he's a 2/2 for 3 mana. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So he is going to let us find our second source of a certain color that we need, or a third source, and he just fixes a little bit. He also thins out the deck from lands, which is good, so you don't always run into more lands out of your draws each turn. Then we have Restoration Angel, so 3/4 for 4 mana, flash flying, and we can flash it in at the end of our opponent's turn, and then still have that Restoration Angel and be able to swing in during our turn. But whenever it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return the card to the battlefield under your control. So you can start bouncing stuff like Thragtusk, Borderland Ranger into more lands, Centaur Healer if you need the life, but Thragtusk is better. Just stuff like that. Restoration Angel is very good, and you can just make the best out of the enter the battlefield abilities. Also Armada Wurm. Armada Wurm's very good with it. But it's an able-bodied creature for that 4 mana, so again, you're still getting some value out of that 4 mana that you're putting into this creature. It's not like you're just putting in 4 mana to bounce something and, well, I guess the appropriate term is blink. To blink something and to bring it back in and have the enter the battlefield ability trigger off. From there we have Sigarda, Host of Herons, so this is a 1-of in the deck, so it's a 5/5 for 5 mana, flying hexproof. Spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents. So it's really nice because it goes against cards like Liliana of the Veil, any other sacrifice abilities, but more so This card is really good because of the hexproof. The flying is there. Evasion is definitely really good, but the hexproof makes it really nice because your opponent's going to have to start using wrath type of cards like Divine Verdict, Terminus, Bonfire of the Damned, where X equals 5 or greater, to actually be able to get rid of Sigarda, and I think that's the best part about her. But she's a 1-of in the deck. She's still really good. Whenever you get her, she just powerhouses. Then we have Thragtusk, so we're running 3 of the Tusk, and he's debatably one of the best cards in green, if not the best card in green. 5/3 for 5 mana. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life, and whenever he leaves the battlefield, so whether that's off of Restoration Angel, or him being exiled, or him being sent back to your hand on top of your deck with Azorius Charm, whatever the case is, whenever he leaves the battlefield, you get a 3/3, which is really, really awesome. But the best part about him is gaining 5 life. It counteracts aggro and anything that aggro does, and anything that they try to overwhelm you with life loss or damage. So Thragtusk is really good for that. So 3 of the Tusk. From there we have Armada Wurm. So like I said before, good with Restoration Angel to blink, but 5/5 for 6 mana, double green, double white to generic trample. And whenever it enters the battlefield, you put a 5/5 green worm creature token with trample onto the battlefield. So for 6 mana, you get 2 5/5s with trample, which is really good value. And if you can blink that, it gets to be pretty good. It's a little bit slower of a tactic, but it happens, and it happens often, so you can work off of it to your advantage. So we're running 2 Armada Wurm in the build. Very good 6-drop. From there, we have Angel of Serenity. So Angel of Serenity is a 5/6 for 7 mana, 4 generic and triple white, flying, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you may exile up to 3 other target creatures from the battlefield and or creatures from graveyards. So the awesome thing about this is if your opponent's playing some kind of a reanimator style deck where they're just going to be going off of really cheap ways to reanimate stuff with Unburial Rites, you can start getting rid of their targets with Angel of Serenity. Also, if they have any decent board presence, any big creatures, stuff like that, you can start just exiling them with Angel of Serenity whenever she hits. And also, if you want to use it on your own creatures, if your opponent's playing removal and you can't hit into your own Unburial Rites in this deck, which we actually do run, then you can start using Angel of Serenity to get those creatures back to your hand, and then just recast them whenever Angel of Serenity leaves, where it's mainly just going to be if she gets killed off. But Angel of Serenity is definitely really good in being able to change the board state of the amount of creatures that your opponents have, or being able to recycle the creatures you have in your grave if you can't reanimate them. So we're running 1 Angel of Serenity. Really good 7-drop. From there, we have our Planeswalkers. So we have Garruk Relentless, so he's a 4-cost, and we are running 2 of them. So on his front side, he is able to create 2/2s, which is good. It's not bad to be able to create some 2/2s and just swarm the board, but whenever he drops below 3 loyalty, whenever he has 2 or fewer loyalty counters, he flips onto his other side, where he is able to let you sacrifice a creature and then search your library for another creature card and then put that into your hand. So from there, we can start sacrificing small tokens. If we make a token with them, we can sacrifice that, or Borderland Ranger, something along those lines, or anything your opponent has that's 2 power or 1 power. And we're able to search for stuff like Angel of Serenity, Armada Wurm, Thragtusk if we need the life, Sigarda, and Restoration Angel. We're able to search for things of that nature and just be able to work with the situation that's present. And on his flip side, he also makes 1/1 tokens with Death Touch, which isn't bad. His ultimate on his flip side isn't bad either. Being able to give all of your creatures a buff is fairly nice as well. But the main thing about him is either on his front side making tokens, or on his flip side to be able to turn into a search engine for creatures that we need. We're also running 1 Garruk Primal Hunter, so he's a 5-cost, 3 loyalty. The triple green is very greedy with this Planeswalker, but the +1 lets us produce 3 3s, which is better than the Relentless and his 2 2s that he makes. But The -3 is the real big reason why I like running Garruk Primal Hunter, and we do have one in the sideboard, but the -3 draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, so you end up drawing a decent bit off of Garruk Primal Hunter, and it could mean the difference between having a creature that can resolve a problem or just being able to drop Angel of Serenity into getting rid of any of your problems. Drawing is definitely really awesome with him. And the -6 is relevant as well. If your opponent can't find a way to board wipe, then you pretty much win with his ultimate. So 1 Garruk. From there we have Vraska the Unseen, so we're running 2 Vraska in the main board. So Vraska is a 5 loyalty and 5 cost. The best thing about her is being able to use Vindicate, so her -3 destroy target non-land permanent. So enchantments, planeswalkers, creatures, she pretty much hits them all unless they have hexproof. And her +1, she protects herself pretty well until your next turn. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to Vraska the Unseen, destroy that creature. So she protects herself fairly well if your opponent's trying to get rid of her. They're going to lose 1 creature, hopefully, unless they have Regenerate or something. But the -7 isn't really as relevant, getting the 3 1/1s that have, whenever they deal combat damage to a player, they lose the game. If the board is completely wide open and you can make that rush into winning from there, then, I mean, you can win with Vraska, but it's not really the preferred method. She's mainly here for removal on a planeswalker. She's good removal on a stick. The Vindicate is definitely really nice. From there, we have Farseek, so we're moving into ramp elements. So with Farseek, we are running a play set, and it's really nice because for 2 mana, we get to search for our shocklands, basically. So if we need our black mana for some of the cards that run black in our deck, and also some stuff in our sideboard that we need the black mana for, we can search for Overgrown Tomb, or if we need another source of white, Temple Garden. But if we run out of shocklands, which really never happens, we would be forced to search for basics. But mainly, Farseek is here for the shocklands. We search for the shocks, we search for the mana we need, we get it, and we prosper. From there, we have Selesnya Keyrune. So the Keyrune is nice because it mana accelerates a little bit. You play it for 3, it taps for green or white to our mana pool. And for 1 green and 1 white, it becomes a 3/3 until the end of the turn. So it's nice in that, especially after a board wipe and your opponent really just left it wide open for you to be able to swing with that 3/3. It's good for that, especially if you can't get another creature and you don't have a planeswalker to produce tokens. But ultimately, it's nice for ramping, I think, more so than anything. But the 3/3 is there if we want to use it. Then we have Oblivion Ring, so we're running 2 Oblivion Ring, and pretty self-explanatory card. Enchantment, whenever it enters the battlefield, exile another target non-land permanent for 3 mana, and you better hope that the Oblivion Ring sticks and that they don't get rid of it some way. But Oblivion Ring is definitely really good as a 2-of. In the main board, we also run 1 sideboard, and it just depends on what we run into and whether it's appropriate to have another one, but Oblivion Ring is just really good. Then we have Jarad's Orders, so a very obscure card that I think a lot of people kind of forget about, and a lot of people, I think, cast this card aside as not really being that huge of an impact on Standard, but I think it's still fairly good for a sorcery. It's a tutor. It's a tutor for 4 mana, 2 generic, 1 green, and 1 black. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards and reveal them. Put 1 into your hand and the other into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. So if we search for 2 creatures, we're able to have 1 go into our hand, the other 1 into our grave. And the reason why this is good is because we can reanimate them with Unburial Rites. So Unburial Rites is awesome. It's a 5-cost sorcery where we can return target creature card from our graveyard to our battlefield. And it also has a flashback for 4 mana, which is 3 generic and 1 white. So the flashback is relevant as well. If our opponent is playing removal that doesn't have our creatures become exiled, then they pretty much aren't going to be getting anywhere with their Dreadbores or anything like that, because Unburial Rites is in the deck and it does what it's supposed to do. It brings back our huge creatures, it gives them some board presence, and it's meant to overwhelm your opponent. So that's the main board for the deck. Now we're going to take a look at the sideboard options. So for the sideboard, I have some particular cards that I like using, and it just kind of differs from person to person and what they like to play, especially the meta. Some sideboards will use Angel of Glory's Rise for a meta that's really heavy with zombies, but honestly I don't think zombies is really that huge of a problem, and even if it shows up, Centaur Healer and Thragtusk really just cancel out any damage that they're doing, or at least any significant damage that they're doing. But as far as the sideboard goes, we have one Garruk Primal Hunter. He's nice, and he sides in over just one Garruk Relentless whenever Garruk Relentless stops being relevant in matchups. So one of him. Also one more Vraska. So Vraska as well, I think, is relevant against the mirror, because whenever your opponent starts playing their Angel of Serenities as well, especially if they're playing it in more multiples, some decks will run it as a 4 of. We have Vraska where she can just get rid of it, and we don't have to worry about that. And we can also get our creatures back, or whatever it seems to be the case with that. We can get stuff back with that Angel of Serenity dying if our opponent decided to get rid of our stuff from our board. But Vraska is good, again, for a lot of matchups where there's some creature hate, but they don't really have a huge amount of ways to get rid of planeswalkers. That's really when you want to be siding in cards like Vraska. But again, with the explanation that I had for her of why she's in the main board, it pretty much goes for why she's in the sideboard. You want more hate, you want to use that Vindicate more, and she's good for it. Then we have Purify the Grave, so we're running 2 of these. For 1 white, exile target card from a graveyard. So it's against Unburial Rites and anything that's remotely close to reanimation. So we're going to get rid of cards that they're able to reanimate, the Unburial Rites itself, if it's in the grave. And we're just going to make it less possible for our opponent to play off of their graveyard. So we're running 2 of these, and the flashback makes it nice because it's going to assure that it's not going to happen again, and that your opponent doesn't have the opportunity to actually be able to reanimate stuff. So 2 Purify the Grave for anti-graveyard shenanigans. Then we have Appetite for Brains. So again, I'll grab a English version here. So Appetite for Brains is really awesome. For 1 black, target opponent reveals his or her hand, so you choose a card with converted mana cost 4 or greater and exile that card. Now, the reason why this is better than Duress is it hits into more things. So it hits into Restoration Angels, Sigardas, Thragtusks, Angels of Serenity, the Planeswalkers, especially Jace, Tamiyo, Vraska, also stuff like Olivia Voldaren, because she's very good right now. It hits into a lot of things. Also, even in Control, you get into Entreat the Angels and Supreme Verdict. Appetite for Brains is so good, and for now, it's strictly better than Duress as far as sideboard tech goes, but that could change. It could change at any instance, really, if the meta starts changing. But for now, Appetite for Brains is really good for the start of the season for Return to Ravnica, and I'm running it as a playset in the sideboard, and it's really good. It's definitely really good. You just have to have the fixing for it. You need the black mana to be able to play it, but if you cast it before turn 4, unless your opponent's deck is running some kind of acceleration, you shouldn't have a problem, because it's 4 or greater converted mana cost, so you can really hit into their big stuff pretty easily. From there, we have Trostani. So this is another card that we side in. This one's more so for decks that like to be really quick on their tempo. So stuff like Zombies, also red deck wins, and the Rakdos deck wins, that just splashes some black in there. Red-black aggro, just strictly red-black aggro because I've seen it just called that. But anything that's really quick on aggro, Trostani just gets there. It gains you back a really sizable amount of life, and the populate's also relevant if you're playing off of some of the tokens that are being created in the deck, especially off the Planeswalkers, Thragtusk also leaving the battlefield, and things of that nature. But Trostani, more so than anything, it's playing off of creatures entering the battlefield and you gaining life off of it. From there, we have Silklash Spider. So I really, really like the Spider, especially for the mirror. And it gets rid of the Angel of Serenity Also, Sigarda, if you run into it, Sigarda's not as huge, but she's still played, so you run into her here and there. But Silklash Spider is definitely really good tech. I have my Onslaught one for you guys that are wondering what set this is. But Silklash Spider is good for that. It's also good for Entreat the Angels because you can get rid of their 4/4s really, really easily. So Spider becomes relevant in that. And also in other matchups like Jund Midrange because they like to use Olivia. You can get rid of Olivia really easily and not have to worry about her. So the one Silklash Spider is tech for a lot of flying threats. One more Oblivion Ring for the decks that we require it against. So the Oblivion Ring is there. We have Sundering Growth, so 2 Sundering Growths for being able to destroy artifacts or enchantments, and then we also get to Populate. Populate isn't as relevant. If it's there, we use it, it happens, and we can benefit from it. But enchantment and artifact hate is good. Detention spheres go away, and any other annoying enchantments that may come up. I don't think the artifacts as much, but enchantments definitely for Oblivion Rings and detention spheres and stuff of that nature. So 2 Sundering Growths. And then we have Sever the Bloodline. So against any decks that like to have a lot of big threats, also off of token shenanigans, control with Entreat the Angels. It has a flashback as well, which is relevant. But you exile target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature, so you don't have to worry about it again. If you can flash it back for the 7 mana, it's really good because you get to reuse it. You get to get rid of 2 or more creatures per time, so, or well, per card, should I say. But overall, Sever the Bloodline is really good in a lot of matchups as well. So that is the deck tech. If you guys missed out on any of the deck contents, whether it's main board or sideboard, there's a list down below with the entire deck list. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe for more daily Magic the Gathering content. And until next time, guys, have a wonderful, fun-filled Magic the Gathering day.